1 year after Earth's defiance, the galaxy had changed forever. The Grand Hall of the former Imperial Palace, once a symbol of oppression, now hosted representatives from thousands of worlds. Today, they would sign the Terran Accords, a new constitution for a free galaxy. Admiral Reed stood at the window, watching ships from hundreds of civilizations orbit the Imperial capital world. Strange, he thought, how the Empire's greatest fortress had become the birthplace of galactic democracy. Quite a view, isn't it? Phillips approached, no longer wearing Imperial insignia. After helping negotiate the Empire's peaceful transition, he had become a key supporter of the new coalition. A year ago, I would have called this impossible. Reed nodded. The best victories are the ones that end with former enemies standing together. The hall filled with delegates. Some walked on legs, others floated, a few existed as pure energy, but all shared a common purpose. The Empire's former subjects had tasted freedom, and they'd worked hard to keep it. Dr. Martinez sat with other scientific leaders, sharing Earth's defensive technologies. Remember, she explained, these tools are for protection, not conquest. That's how we avoided becoming an empire ourselves. Admiral Parker, who had helped coordinate the galaxy-wide revolution, stood at the podium. Before him lay the Terran Accords, a document that would transform the old empire into the Galactic Federation of Free Worlds. A year ago, he began, his voice carrying across the hall. Earth stood alone against the Empire. We didn't fight for conquest. We didn't fight for power. We fought for something the Empire had forgotten: the right of every civilization to choose its own path. The first counselor, now serving on the Transition Council, listened thoughtfully. The past year had taught the Empire's leadership hard lessons about power and responsibility. Earth could have conquered the galaxy, Parker continued. We had the technology, the weapons, the capability. Instead, we chose to share knowledge, to help others defend themselves, to build something new together. Thomas and Maria, the former Imperial analysts whose warning had gone unheeded, sat among Earth's delegation. They had seen humanity's power firsthand and had helped convince others that Earth's way was better than the Empire's. The Terran Accords. Parker held up the document. Ensure that no single power can ever dominate the galaxy again. Each world maintains its independence while joining a federation of equals. We will face the future united, not through force, but through choice. One by one, representatives approached to sign. Earth's signature came not first, but in the middle, equal among many. Reed watched with pride as former enemies became allies, as ancient rivals shook hands, as the galaxy embraced a new way forward. The ceremony concluded with an unexpected gesture. The first counselor approached Reed, holding an ancient imperial artifact, the Seal of Dominion, symbol of absolute power. For 10,000 years, the counselor said, this represented the Empire's right to rule. Now it should represent something else. He placed the seal in Reed's hands, a reminder of what happens when power corrupts and how wisdom can overcome pride. Reed accepted the seal, but didn't keep it. Instead, he placed it in a display case alongside other artifacts from the galaxy's long history. The past should teach us, not bind us, he said. As the celebrations began, Reed found a quiet moment to send a message back to Earth. Mission accomplished, he wrote. The galaxy is free, and humanity has kept its soul. Outside, ships from 1,000 worlds lit up the sky with celebration displays. The empire that had sought to conquer Earth was gone, replaced by something stronger. A federation built on respect, cooperation, and the simple truth that every civilization deserves to forge its own destiny. Humanity's greatest victory hadn't come from its weapons or technology. It had come from showing the galaxy a better way forward, and having the wisdom not to become what they had fought against. The stars shone brighter that night, as if they too were celebrating the dawn of a new era. News of Earth's defiance spread through the Empire like wildfire. Despite the Council's attempts to suppress information, stories of the failed invasion leaked to every conquered world. The reports traveled through hidden networks, whispered in shadows. A single planet had humbled the mighty empire. Admiral William Parker strode through the halls of the United Defense Force headquarters, his footsteps echoing as he approached the Emergency Council chamber. The past week had brought unexpected developments. They're requesting contact, he announced to the assembled leaders. Not the Empire, the conquered worlds. Their resistance movements want to talk. The room's massive screen lit up, showing representatives from dozens of subjugated civilizations. Some appeared humanoid, others were completely alien, but all shared the same look of desperate hope. Earth, spoke a resistance leader from the Proxima system, their translator converting complex harmonics into English. We watched as you did what no one else dared. You stood against the Empire, and won. Parker studied their faces. You're taking an enormous risk contacting us. We've lived under Imperial rule for generations, another leader added, this one a being of pure energy contained in a mechanical shell. But their defeat at Earth showed us something we'd forgotten. They can be beaten. Reports flowed in. Across the galaxy, conquered worlds had begun quiet rebellions. Imperial garrisons found their technology failing, their systems compromised by codes similar to those Earth had used. The spark of resistance had become a flame. In the Imperial Palace, alarms blared. The first counselor received reports of simultaneous uprisings on 100 worlds. Impossible, he raged. These primitives couldn't coordinate such attacks. But they had. Using Earth's quantum communication technology, resistance movements coordinated their strikes. Centuries of Imperial rule began crumbling. Parker presented the situation to Earth's United Council. The Empire is facing rebellion everywhere. Their subjected worlds are using our tactics, our codes. They're asking for more than just communication now. They want an alliance. Admiral Reed, watching from his command post, nodded. Earth never wanted to become an empire ourselves. But perhaps we can help build something better. The decision was made. Earth would share its defensive technology with the resistance movements. Not the weapons. Humanity had learned that lesson from history. But the tools to protect themselves, to communicate, to coordinate. Parker found himself leading a diplomatic mission unlike any in human history. The newly formed alliance of free worlds began taking shape. Representatives from hundreds of civilizations gathered in secret, learning from Earth's example. Your world showed us something crucial, a resistance leader told Parker during a clandestine meeting. The Empire's greatest weakness wasn't their technology or their strategies. It was their arrogance. The Empire scrambled to respond, but found themselves fighting shadows. Every time they crushed one rebellion, 3 more sprouted. Their once mighty fleet was spread thin, trying to maintain control over too many worlds. In their desperation, they considered another attack on Earth. Phillips, watching the Empire's grip on the galaxy weaken, argued against it. Earth expects an attack. They're prepared. If we strike now, we'll lose everything. The first counselor, his ancient face twisted with rage, knew he was right. The Empire faced a choice, adapt or fall. Back on Earth, Parker stood before the United Council, delivering his report. The alliance grows stronger each day. The Empire's subject worlds aren't just fighting for freedom. They're fighting for a new way of governing the galaxy. They're looking to Earth not as conquerors, but as teachers. Reed smiled. Then let's teach them well. The galaxy doesn't need another empire. It needs something new. A federation of free worlds, working together. As Parker left the council chamber, reports continued flowing in. More worlds joining the alliance. More Imperial garrisons surrendering. More civilizations remembering what it meant to be free. The revolution wasn't just spreading, it was succeeding. And it had all started because one planet had dared to say no to an empire. The Imperial Council chamber fell silent as Phillips finished his report. 12 ancient counselors, their bodies enhanced with centuries of technological improvements, sat in stunned disbelief. The loss of their first strike force was unprecedented. Impossible, the first counselor muttered. No primitive world could have such defenses, could have such weapons. Dr. Laura Martinez watched this scene play out through one of Earth's quantum spy drones, a device smaller than a dust particle that had attached itself to Philip's uniform during the battle. In her vast underground laboratory beneath the Pacific Ocean, she allowed herself a small smile. "They still don't understand," she said to Admiral Reed, who stood beside her. "They think they've seen our true capabilities." The laboratory around them hummed with power. Massive machines worked on projects that would have seemed like magic even to the Empire. In one chamber, scientists manipulated gravity itself. In another, they were perfecting technology that could redirect stellar energy through artificial wormholes. "Should we show them?" Reed asked, watching screens displaying the Imperial Council's reaction. "Really show them?" Martinez nodded. "They're preparing their main fleet, 10 times larger than the first wave. If we don't demonstrate our full strength now, there will be unnecessary bloodshed." Reed activated his neural link to the United Council. Within seconds, he received their authorization. "Do it," he commanded. Martinez walked to a secure terminal and began typing. Initiating the Prometheus Protocol. Phase 2. Deep in the sun's chromosphere, hidden stations that humanity had built over decades came to life. These stations, protected by fields that bent light and gravity around them, had been gathering solar energy for years, storing it in quantum batteries. But that wasn't humanity's only secret. Beneath the ice of Europa, a massive facility activated. On Mercury's dark side, buried factories began producing advanced weaponry. In the Kuiper Belt, cloaked shipyards revealed themselves, showing vessels that made Imperial ships look primitive. The spy drone transmitted everything back to the Imperial Council chamber. "By the eternal stars," Phillips whispered as the images appeared before the council. "Those aren't just defensive systems. That's an arsenal that could conquer the galaxy." Martinez's voice cut through their communications, bypassing every security measure. "You thought we were primitive because we hadn't spread across the stars. The truth is, we chose to stay in our solar system, building our strength, learning from every alien civilization that tried to conquer us." She gestured, and more images appeared before the council. "We've had ships capable of interstellar travel for 50 years. We could have built an empire of our own. Instead, we prepared. We watched. We learned from your mistakes." The first counselor stood, his ancient frame trembling with rage and fear. "Why show us this now?" "Because," Reed's voice joined the transmission, "your main fleet approaches. 100,000 ships, gathering at the edge of our system. And we want you to understand something. If you launch them, none will return." To prove their point, Martinez activated a small demonstration. A focused beam of solar energy, channeled through an artificial wormhole, appeared in the council chamber. It burned through the floor like paper, then vanished, a warning of what could happen to their entire fleet. "Here is your choice," Reed continued. "The Empire can either recognize Earth's independence and open diplomatic relations, or we can demonstrate why every civilization that underestimated humanity has fallen." The council chamber erupted in argument. Some demanded immediate attack, others called for retreat, and a few suggested negotiation. Phillips, watching the chaos, remembered the devastation of their first attack. If this was just a fraction of Earth's power. "Counselors," he spoke up, "I've seen their weapons firsthand. If what they're showing us now is true, and I believe it is, we aren't dealing with primitives. We're dealing with a civilization that could have conquered us years ago, but chose not to." The first counselor sank back into his throne. For the first time in 10,000 years, the Empire faced a force it couldn't defeat. In her laboratory, Martinez switched off the transmission. "They'll need time to process this, to accept that their empire isn't the supreme power they thought it was." Reed nodded. "Let's hope they choose wisdom over pride this time. Because if they don't..." He left the sentence unfinished. They both knew that humanity was ready, either way. The 24 hours had passed. Grand Commander Phillips stood on his bridge, pride overcoming his earlier doubts. The Imperial Council had spoken. The Empire would not back down from primitives, no matter their supposed capabilities. Launch the first wave, he commanded. 5,000 Imperial warships moved forward, their engines burning bright against the black of space. The invasion of Earth had begun. In the underground command center, Commander James Anderson watched the Imperial fleets approach. Unlike Admiral Reed's diplomatic role, Anderson was Earth's tactical commander, chosen for his brilliant strategic mind. They're following standard Imperial doctrine, Anderson noted, his fingers dancing over the holographic controls, just as Thomas and Maria told us they would. Arrogant. Predictable. He turned to his crew. Initiate Operation Web. Across the solar system, thousands of quantum-entangled satellites activated. Each one was smaller than a coffee cup, practically invisible to Imperial sensors. But together, they formed humanity's first line of defense. The Imperial ships entered the web. At first, nothing seemed to happen. "Sir," an Imperial officer called out, "we're detecting some kind of energy field, but our sensors can't." The officer never finished his sentence. The quantum web activated. In an instant, half of the Imperial fleet found their advanced systems shutting down. Ships drifted helplessly in space, their crews trapped inside vessels that had suddenly become nothing more than metal coffins. Phillips watched in horror as 2,500 ships went dark. Impossible. Nothing can penetrate our shields like that. Second wave. Launch. He commanded, his cybernetic implants glowing red with fury. The remaining ships adjusted their strategy, trying to find gaps in the invisible web that had crippled their companions. Anderson smiled grimly. They never learn. Activate the Prometheus array. Dr. Laura Martinez, watching from her laboratory beneath the Pacific Ocean, initiated the sequence they had prepared for decades. Hundreds of hidden platforms throughout the solar system aligned with the sun, each one capturing and focusing its energy. The Imperial fleet didn't see the attack coming. Beams of concentrated solar energy, refined and enhanced by technology humanity had perfected over centuries, cut through space. Imperial shields, designed to stop conventional weapons, might as well have been paper. 300 ships lost. An Imperial officer reported, panic in his voice. They're using the sun itself as a weapon. Phillips gripped his command throne. Press forward. The Empire never retreats. Launch all remaining ships. But humanity wasn't finished. Anderson gave his next order. Release the drones. Millions of tiny machines, each one powered by zero-point energy, swarmed from hidden bases on Mars, the Moon, and asteroids throughout the system. They attached themselves to Imperial ships, bypassing shields designed to stop larger threats. "Sir," Thomas Smith spoke up from where he and Maria stood watching the battle. "You have to withdraw. This is what they warned us about. They're not even using their main fleet yet." Phillips turned to strike the analyst, but froze as new alerts blared. The drones had begun their work, transmitting override codes that Earth had extracted from decades of studying crashed Imperial ships. Across the fleet, vessels began turning on each other, their systems compromised. "Status report," Phillips demanded. 80% of the fleet is either disabled or destroyed. His tactical officer reported, voice shaking. "The rest are, sir, they're receiving transmissions from the human drones. Some kind of code that's overriding our control systems." Anderson watched the chaos with a mix of satisfaction and sadness. "Send the final message," he ordered. Every remaining Imperial ship received the transmission. "This was your first lesson. We gave you a chance to withdraw. Instead, you chose pride over wisdom. The Empire has one more chance. Leave Earth's solar system, or next time we won't hold back." Phillips stared at the tactical display, watching his mighty fleet drift in ruins. The Empire had lost battles before, but never like this. Never so completely. Never so easily. "Order the retreat," he whispered, his pride finally broken. "Get us out of this system. As the remaining Imperial ships fled, Anderson turned to his crew. "Well done, everyone. But stay alert. Something tells me the Empire isn't going to take this humiliation lightly." He was right. The real war was just beginning. The Imperial command ship Eternal Glory hung in space like a dark star, its massive form casting a shadow across Earth's moon. On its bridge, Grand Commander Phillips stared at the holographic display of the newly returned analysts, Thomas Smith and Maria Cooper. Their report had been disturbing. "You expect me to believe," Phillips said slowly, his cybernetically enhanced eyes glowing with barely contained anger, "that this backwater world has technology matching our own?" "Sir," Thomas replied, his voice steady despite his fear, "what we saw goes beyond matching. They've been preparing for centuries. They have weapons we've never." "Enough." Phillips slammed his fist on his command throne. "These primitives are playing mind games, using holograms and cheap tricks to intimidate our agents." He turned to his tactical officer. "Prepare the integration fleet. We'll show them what real power looks like." But before the officer could respond, every screen on the bridge lit up simultaneously. The Empire's most sophisticated encryption crumbled like paper as Earth's transmission cut through their systems. Admiral Reed's face appeared on the main display, calm and composed. Behind him stood the members of Earth's United Council, representing every nation on the planet. "Grand Commander Phillips," Reed began, "we've returned your analysts as a show of good faith. They've seen a fraction of our true capabilities. This transmission is your sole warning." Phillips laughed, the sound echoing across the bridge. "Warning. You dare threaten the Eternal Empire. We have conquered 10,000 worlds." "And yet," Reed continued, unfazed, "you know nothing of Earth's history. Every empire that fought us weak fell. Every civilization that underestimated humanity's resolve was proven wrong. Review your history, Commander. Ask yourself why your exploration fleets near Earth went silent over the decades." The Grand Commander's smile faltered slightly. Those lost fleets had been a mystery that haunted the Empire's records. Reed's expression remained neutral as he continued, "We don't want war. We don't seek conquest. We simply wish to be left alone. But make no mistake, if you force this conflict, we will end it decisively." "You speak of history," Phillips snarled. "Then you should know the Empire has never retreated, never surrendered. There's always a first time." Reed pressed a button on his desk. Suddenly, the Empire's sensors detected energy signatures appearing throughout the solar system. Hidden defense platforms, massive warships, and weapon systems beyond their understanding emerged from quantum camouflage. The tactical display showed thousands of points of light surrounding the Imperial fleet. "That's 1% of our defensive capability," Reed stated. "We've had centuries to prepare, studying every piece of alien technology that crashed on our world. We improved upon it all. Your analysts saw our facilities. They know what we can do." Thomas stepped forward, his voice shaking. "Sir, please. What they showed us, they're not bluffing." Phillips gripped his throne tighter, his cybernetics glowing brighter with rage. "You would have the Eternal Empire retreat from primitives. Impossible. Pride has destroyed more empires than weakness ever did," Reed replied. "You have 24 hours to withdraw from our solar system. After that, we will consider your presence an act of war." The transmission cut off. Silence fell over the Imperial bridge. The tactical officer spoke first, his voice quiet. "Sir, analysis confirms the energy readings. They're weapons. They're unlike anything in our database, and our sensors indicate this is only a small fraction of their total signatures." Phillips stood, his mechanical fists clenched. Thousands of years of Imperial history weighed on his shoulders. Never had the Empire retreated. Never had they abandoned a conquest. But as he looked at the tactical display, watching more and more human defense systems reveal themselves like stars appearing at dusk, a new emotion crept into his cybernetic heart. Fear. "Send word to the Imperial Council," he ordered, his voice heavy. "Tell them, Tell them we found something unprecedented. A world that prepared. A civilization that learned from others' mistakes. A species that built its defenses in secret for centuries, waiting for this very day. He turned to stare at the blue planet on his view screen. And may the gods help us all if we're foolish enough to ignore their warning. Thomas Smith's heart raced as his stealth pod descended through Earth's atmosphere. As a senior Imperial analyst, he had infiltrated dozens of primitive worlds before. This mission should have been routine. Instead, everything had gone wrong from the start. "Maria, are you seeing this?" he whispered into his neural communicator. His partner, Maria Cooper, was in a second pod landing 20 miles away. Both of them were Imperial agents surgically altered to look human. "Yes," she replied, her voice tense. "Their defense grid is impossible. It's like nothing in the Empire's records. Their pods, designed to be invisible to primitive sensors, had triggered multiple alarms during descent. Only their advanced countermeasures had prevented immediate interception." As Thomas's pod touched down in a remote forest, he quickly activated his camouflage suit. He barely made it 10 steps before bright lights flooded the area. Imperial Analyst Thomas Smith, a calm voice announced through hidden speakers. "Your presence has been monitored since you entered the solar system. Please surrender." Thomas froze. They knew his name. His real name. His hand moved toward his emergency teleporter, but before he could activate it, a pulse of energy swept through the forest. His advanced Imperial technology went dead, including the teleporter and his neural communicator. "Don't bother with the teleporter," the voice continued. "We've been jamming Imperial frequencies for decades." Armed soldiers emerged from seemingly nowhere, their armor unlike anything Thomas had seen before. It wasn't crude metal or plastics. It was made from materials that shouldn't exist on a pre-space civilization world. Across the country, Maria found herself in a similar situation. Her pod had landed in a desert, but the outcome was the same. Within minutes, both Imperial analysts were taken into custody. Hours later, they sat in a bright interrogation room, facing Admiral Reed himself. The Admiral placed a tablet on the table between them, displaying images that made both analysts pale. "Recognize these?" Reed asked, sliding through photos of crashed Imperial ships. "We've been collecting them for over 70 years. Your Empire isn't the first to visit Earth, just the first to be so. Direct about your intentions." Thomas stared at the images in disbelief. "These ships, they're from our outer exploration fleets, the ones we lost contact with." "Yes," Reed nodded. "We didn't destroy them. They crashed while trying to penetrate our defensive grid, a grid we'd already built from studying even earlier crashed ships." Maria leaned forward. "That's not possible. The Empire's technology is superior to anything a primitive world could." "Primitive?" Reed interrupted, pressing a button on the tablet. A hologram appeared, showing vast underground facilities filled with technology that made the Imperial analysts' jaws drop. "We've had decades to study, reverse engineer, and improve upon every piece of alien technology that's crashed here. Your Empire's technology isn't superior. It's outdated." He showed them more: quantum computing centers, antimatter production facilities, zero-point energy reactors. "Earth isn't defenseless. We're just careful about what we let others see." Thomas felt a chill run down his spine. The Empire, they don't know. They think this is a simple integration mission. "Exactly." Reed smiled. "And we'd like to give them a chance to reconsider." "That's where you come in." Maria's eyes narrowed. "What do you mean?" "We're going to show you everything," Reed explained. "Our real military capabilities, our technological advancements, our defensive systems. Then we're going to send you back to your Empire with a warning." "You're letting us go?" Thomas asked incredulously. "Of course, because once you see what we're capable of, you'll understand why your Empire should take our warning seriously." Reed stood up, his expression grave. "We don't want war. We don't want to join your Empire. We simply want to be left alone." And if the Empire forces our hand, he let the sentence hang in the air. As Thomas and Maria were led out to begin their tour, they exchanged worried glances. They had come to assess a primitive world. Instead, they had discovered humanity's carefully guarded secret. Earth wasn't helpless. It was a sleeping giant, one that had spent decades preparing for this exact moment. And the Empire was about to learn why underestimating humanity was a deadly mistake. The massive Imperial scout ship sliced through the darkness of space, its metallic hull gleaming under the distant sunlight as it emerged from hyperspace near Neptune's orbit. The vessel's sudden appearance triggered thousands of hidden sensors scattered throughout the solar system, sending urgent signals back to Earth. In the United Defense Force headquarters beneath the Rocky Mountains, Admiral Reed stood before the giant holographic display, his weathered face illuminated by the blinking red alerts. At 62 years old, he had spent his entire career preparing for this moment. The Admiral's calm demeanor masked the gravity of the situation as junior officers rushed around him, their footsteps echoing through the command center. "Sir, the alien vessel is 3 times larger than anything we've encountered in the simulation drills," reported Lieutenant Adams, her fingers flying over the holographic controls. "Their technology signatures match nothing in our database." Reed nodded, his steel-gray eyes fixed on the ship's trajectory. "Have they detected our observation posts?" "Negative, sir. Our quantum camouflage is holding." The room fell silent as a transmission cut through Earth's communications networks. The alien message bypassed all encryption, broadcasting simultaneously on every frequency. A deep, resonating voice filled the command center. "People of Earth, hear the words of the Eternal Empire. Your world has been chosen for integration into our grand civilization. 10,000 worlds prosper under our guidance. Resistance is unnecessary and would only lead to unnecessary losses. Prepare for our arrival and the beginning of your ascension." Reed's lips curved into a slight smile. The Empire had made their first mistake. They'd revealed their intentions too early. "Get me the United Council," he ordered, "and activate Protocol Lighthouse." Across Earth, hidden military bases stirred to life. In the depths of the Pacific Ocean, massive underwater hangars opened their doors. High in the Himalayas, weapon systems that had remained dormant for decades powered up. Beneath the Antarctic ice, thermal reactors began charging ancient defense grids. The United Council convened within minutes, their holograms appearing in the command center. Representatives from every major nation stood ready, their faces grim but determined. This wasn't humanity's first encounter with alien life, but it was the first time they faced such an overwhelming force. "The Empire's ship is holding position near Neptune," Reed reported. "Based on their engine signature, they're capable of reaching Earth within hours, but they're being cautious, running standard reconnaissance patterns." "Have they detected our defensive capabilities?" asked the Council Chief, her hologram flickering slightly. "No, everything remains hidden under quantum shielding. They see exactly what we want them to see, a relatively primitive civilization with basic space capabilities and minimal defensive systems." Reed brought up the detailed scans of the Imperial vessel. "Their ship design suggests a civilization that relies heavily on intimidation. The size is unnecessary from a purely military standpoint. They're used to cowing primitive worlds into submission through show of force." "Then they know nothing about humans," commented another council member, drawing quiet chuckles from the room. Lieutenant Adams suddenly straightened at her station. "Sir, we're detecting smaller craft launching from the main vessel. Scout ships heading toward the inner solar system." Reed watched as dozens of smaller blips appeared on the display. "Right on schedule. They'll want to establish a presence in our system before making their formal approach." He turned to face the council. "I recommend we proceed with Operation Silent Watch. Let them come closer. Let them think they have the upper hand." The council voted unanimously in favor. As the representatives' holograms faded away, Reed moved to the central platform. The command center's lights dimmed as he addressed the crew. "For a century, we've prepared for this moment. Since the first crashed alien ship in 1947, humanity has quietly built its defenses. We've reversed engineered their technology, improved upon it, and created weapons they can't imagine. The Empire thinks they're dealing with primitives. He paused, looking at each officer in turn. Let them think that. Let them come closer, because when they realize their mistake, it will be too late. Outside, in the vast expanse of space, the Imperial scouts continued their approach, unaware that they were flying into the most sophisticated defensive network ever created. Earth waited silently, its true power hidden beneath a carefully crafted veil of technological innocence. The first move had been made. Now it was humanity's turn to play their hand.